to teach them
how
to take care of their body. So we work specifically with hormones, digestive health, and just generally teaching women how to take care of their body. So I have quite a few certifications, as you can see on the screen. So I am a functional nutritionist, and I have some certifications in health coaching as well as personal training. And I am currently doing a certification which will allow me to run lab tests as well. And I'm super excited. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the implications of that and potentially some testing that you could get done if you are interested as well.
So let me do this one. So the pillars of these are actually the 5 pillars of Aeryon Wellness. And one of the reasons Sarah and I think align so well is we both really believe this. It's not and Sarah does with her work and I try to do with mine, is really trying to educate women to look at the whole picture in its entirety. So the 5 pillars of holistic health are the thoughts you think, the friends you keep, your daily movement, nutrition, and then of course, supplementation. And we're going to be using this as kind of a guidepost throughout our talk today, giving you different tools and strategies in which you can apply these different 5 pillars to find more balance and hopefully navigate yourself through perimenopause in a wonderful way.
And I do want to add how important these factors really are. So as I work with largely a science background, and a lot of the information I provide has scientific evidence. And I find due to conventional medicine as well, sometimes we negate how important all of these other things can be in our overall health. And especially when we're looking at perimenopause, and we'll talk a little bit about the nervous system and supporting your stress, all of these things really matter. And there's not one that's necessarily way more important than others. And I feel like I see a lot with clients that sometimes some of the ones like the thoughts that you think or the friends you keep are like, oh yeah, that would be nice or whatever. But really what I've seen is those are the things that can be so profound and so impactful with clients and their success and their healing. So if you read that slide and you were like, I don't really know about that, I can tell you for a fact that all of these are so important for health, healing, and especially when we're talking about hormone support. So we're going to play a little game, which is Mythbuster, Fact or Fiction. So these are some of the common myths that we'll often hear about menopause and perimenopause. I get asked these questions quite a bit in my practice as well. So maybe you can raise your hand or you can write in the chat box as I call these out. So fact or fiction, you cannot lose weight after menopause. Ready? So this one is definitely not a fact. This one is not a true tale. I work with many clients who have gone through either surgical or they have gone through either surgical menopause or transitioned through perimenopause. Potentially at the time they were doing the best they could with the knowledge they have. Maybe they didn't have the knowledge that you're about to get on supporting your body, and they did gain a bit of weight after menopause. And I've been able to support lots and lots of women in my practice. And there's no reason why someone at any age can't reach their goals or get to a weight that's healthy for their body, which I will preface by saying looks a little bit different for everyone. Fact or fiction number 2, cardio is a no-go after menopause. You need specific training for menopause. So this one is also not true. However, there is some gray area, and we will talk a little bit more about this when we talk about the movement portion and the nervous system. So cardio is this big word. Walking is a form of cardio. Walking is a great form of cardio for many people, and each individual person will have a unique threshold for how much stress their body can take, and that includes exercise, but there's no reason why cardio in general needs to be forgotten about or is unable to be practiced while you're going through menopause. And in many ways, it's actually very, very supportive for our heart health as well. So just like everything, we want a good balance. So we don't want to be, doing 2 hours of running every single day, regardless of our age. And strength training is important, but you can do any sort of movement at any point in your life, given your body doesn't have any restrictions physically. Number 3, this is one of my favorite questions. What worked for you at 20 years old will work for you now. Fiction indeed. So I always like to give this analogy, and it makes a lot of sense when I talk about this with my clients in practice. So if my body right now, I'm 26 years old, if the inputs that I'm giving my body have an outcome. So, the types of food that I'm eating, the amount of food that I'm eating supports my best health now at 26. So let's say my body as a machine right now is a CD player. And so the input I'm giving my body is a CD. When I put it inside of my body, it plays beautifully. Everything is awesome. When our hormones start to shift around menopause, your hormones control your mood, your metabolism, the way you think, the way you feel, your energy. So if all of that is shifting, my body is now working in a different way. So it's kind of like a different machine. So if I try to play a CD into a cassette player, remember those, it's not going to play in the same way. And so we do need to understand that as all of these internal factors are shifting in our body, there are some shifts that we do need to be mindful of and to make for ourselves to support us where we are right now. Number 4, the changes of perimenopause are random and chaotic, or people will just be feeling crazy and it's just a sporadic little crap storm and then everything goes away after menopause. No, yes, indeed. There is actually different phases, which we'll talk about, to perimenopause. And although parts of it can feel kind of chaotic, there is actually a system in which your body moves through as you are going through perimenopause. I have to cut out carbs to lose weight. Correct. This one is also no. We should have put a few true ones here, mix it up a little. And then the last one is PMS issues go away once you stop bleeding. So if you have like painful periods or experience a lot of PMS issues after you hit menopause, those are going to be done. Correct. The answer is no. And we will talk a little bit about this in the coming slides. You guys, 100% star students. So this is what we're going to be discussing today. We'll talk about what perimenopause is, some of the stages that your body moves through as you go through that transition. We'll talk about different ways to support your body. And then we'll also touch on how to reduce some of the main risk factors that come along with menopause or that are commonly seen due to some of the changes that are happening, as well as supplementation for how to support your body.
So what is perimenopause? I'll take this slide. Yeah. Okay. Wasn't sure. What is perimenopause? So it's also known as the second puberty. And it's really the transition from going from a regular cycle to no menstrual cycles when you're going to be hitting menopause. So the ovaries begin to stop producing estrogen. Progesterone also begins to decline as well. And some of the symptoms myself, I am actually starting perimenopause. I'm kind of like pre-perimenopause right now. So changes to menstrual cycle. If I'm not completely regular sometimes, a little bit of weight gain, sleep issues, waking up sometimes in the middle of the night or not being able to get that really deep restful sleep. You can experience hot flashes as well, vaginal dryness, and heart palpitations as well.
And so as I discussed, perimenopause is a sequence of events. And this is why it's really important to understand what's going on in our body so that we know when to support ourselves. So for many of the clients that I work with, and maybe we started working together before perimenopause, we can start to see, as Aeryon mentioned, some of those pre-changes that are happening. So you're not quite in perimenopause or seeing some of the major shifts, but you are starting to feel a little bit different and see these things coming up. And once we know what's going on in our body, we have a better chance to support ourselves through the transition and to understand what's going on in our body rather than be like, oh, I feel kind of weird. And then all of a sudden, some of the symptoms you might have been experiencing while you were bleeding start to exacerbate through perimenopause. So as we come into our late 30s and 40s, the hormone progesterone starts to decline. And especially in today's day and age where many of us are under some sort of stress, as women, we're under some level of stress. I see quite often in my practice that many women do already have low progesterone. And so this can be exacerbated as we reach our late 30s and 40s as we start to produce less progesterone. And so one of progesterone's main roles is to protect us against the highs and lows of estrogen. So you'll often hear people talking about PMS mood swings or even perimenopause mood swings. And oftentimes that's due to fluctuating levels of estrogen. And we don't have enough progesterone to help stabilize us from all of those fluctuations. So we feel like we're definitely fluctuating. So as we reach our late 30s and 40s, that's kind of one of the first stages as progesterone production starts to decline. And then stage 2 is where we have high and potentially fluctuating estrogen. And so high estrogen symptoms can manifest as irritable mood, breast pain, heavy periods, cramping, sometimes weight gain, and just generally feeling kind of watery, puffy, and inflamed. So this would be stage 2. So now if we talk about hormone balance, we want progesterone and estrogen to be in a good balance. So if we have progesterone levels declining and we also have estrogen levels either raising or fluctuating, this leaves a really big gap, which can make people feel not that great or imbalance. And so again, starting to support your body as your progesterone levels decline, we can do things to support our body to build up some of that reserve so that we'll have less symptomatic as we move through the next stages. And then after we reach our final period, we have lower levels of estrogen. So your ovaries stop producing estrogen. You as a person can still produce estrogen from a conversion of testosterone, and depending on how much adipose tissue or fat you have on your body, that can also produce some estrogen. So we are still producing a little bit, but it's not nearly as much as you would be producing when you are having a menstrual cycle. So due to these changes, we have some risk factors. So potential increased risk of insulin resistance, weight gain, and osteoporosis, and some other factors we'll talk about. So these risk factors come about as estrogen's role is supporting bone health, one of the roles. It also helps with insulin sensitivity. So as our hormones that are supporting our metabolism, our bones, our brain health start to decline, we can start to see these shifts happen as well. And this is just a nice little graphic to talk about it. So we see over here in very early menopause, we'll have changes in experience. And that's of course very subjective. So everybody's change in experience is a little bit different. And this would be the ideal time where we start to think about supporting ourselves and implementing some of the strategies that we talk about today, if you haven't already, when you start to see these shifts. And so I'm a huge proponent of recording your menstrual cycle so that you can catch these shifts early on and be able to support your body. And so someone who might notice the shifts happen here and start to support their body potentially probably has less symptoms as well as less risk factors than someone who only realizes it when they're at this late stage of transition.
Sorry, that me? Okay, sorry. My dad's dog just fell. Most of us can, so now we're gonna talk about menopause as a critical window to health, sorry. So as you know, when we look at seasons, we can get sick during the seasons. Sorry, I've had a, 1 second. We have a dog who needs to come out who fell. All right, sorry. These shifts and changes are times that we need to actually put extra care and attention supporting our health. So some of these small problems, if we don't start addressing them, can really amplify to bigger problems later down the future, down the way. So it's a critical period also to prevent heart disease, insulin resistance, as Sarah was talking about earlier, really looking at different tools and strategies we're going to be talking about to support yourself as you hit perimenopause and going into menopause. And looking at the immune system as well, because it begins remodeling itself. And so we're looking at how we can support our immune system, and then also how we can support our brain health too.
And this is also important to understand, as many women who go through, let's say, surgical menopause, they don't have this period of perimenopause where they're able to support their body through these shifts. So it's common that is someone who might have gone through surgical menopause early on will have more symptoms than somebody who has had that transition period. And so this period is a really important time to take care of and support your body. When should we start supporting our body? So the best time to start supporting is immediately, if not sooner, as my father would say. But we ideally want to start supporting ourselves as soon as we have a menstrual cycle, right? So every cycle that we have where we ovulate, because ovulation is the main event of a menstrual cycle, not the bleed, we're essentially putting a little deposit into our hormone health bank. So when we have an ovulatory cycle, we make enough progesterone, we are supporting our current self as well as our future self with the production of progesterone, which, as I mentioned, is very protective and can help with overall hormone balance. So we want to start supporting our cycles and have healthy ovulatory cycles right off of the bat. And if you were to experience PMS issues while you are having a monthly bleed, that would be something to look into, because PMS is actually not normal and it is a sign of imbalance. So if we leave the PMS symptoms and just kind of forget about them, they're going to still come up through perimenopause, and they'll probably be exacerbated and happen in a much larger and stronger scale if we don't deal with them while we're having a cycle. So when we have ovulatory cycles, we're decreasing the risk of dementia, heart disease, and we have an increased life expectancy, which was a pretty good study that was done. And they actually studied the impact that having ovulatory cycles can have on your lifespan. I think it was done in nurses as well, so working night shifts. When we have healthy estrogen levels, it can help maintain heart and brain health, as I mentioned, enhance insulin sensitivity, and support our metabolism. So we really want to make sure before we head into perimenopause that our hormones are as stable and as supported as we can. And we also want to be cycling for as long as we can. So we do want to try to keep our menstrual cycle for as long as we can, and then continue a lot of these supports into perimenopause, like the ones that we will touch on.
Well, I was just going to say too, with, because I have a 13-year-old and any mothers out there. So if you find your daughter, but these are also some great things to really talk to our young daughters about. My daughter, Michaela, has started her cycle, obviously. So really looking at these different things in which we can, oh my goodness, my dad's dog, sorry, can support blood sugar balance, getting our daughters to also enjoy exercising and moving their body, looking at ways they can support themselves with stress. And also my daughter tracks her cycle as well, and she's 13. So becoming really aware of how healthy and important it is to have this balance and this cycle regularity going on.
So nourishment, as we are both nutritionists, might have a little bias to say nutrition is key, and it is so, so foundational for any sort of health concern, consideration, imbalance we have. And it is one of the most beautiful ways that every single day, multiple times a day, we're able to support our body and our best health.
So
we do have
mine's the next one. You're doing this one.
So we do have some nutrition related changes that happen to our body as we age as females. Now, this word aging is really big. Some of these shifts are actually happening as we reach our late 20s onward. And so these are things to be important to understand. And it gives a little bit of context to why what you might have been eating in your 20s will not work for you in the same way, and highlight why it's so important to understand how to support your body through these changes. So we developed something called anabolic resistance. And anabolic is a word that essentially means to build. So it's our ability to build muscle and also to maintain lean muscle mass. And so when we start to experience anabolic resistance, we are less able to use the nutrition we're eating, so specifically protein, to support muscle protein synthesis, which is exactly what it sounds, the development and maintenance of lean muscle mass. So if I was to eat, as a 26-year-old, 30 grams of protein, that has enough amino acids to stimulate my body to make muscle and to retain the muscle I have. Now, as I start to age, I might actually need closer to something like 40 grams, even 50 grams in one sitting, not throughout the day, in order to have the same effect on my body. So my body is less able to use those amino acids to retain and to build muscle. So it's important to get more protein at each sitting than you might have when you were 20 or 30 years old in order to maintain the lean muscle mass you have. And the more lean muscle mass we have, the greater our longevity is. And it is a great way to decrease risk factors such as osteoporosis and support your metabolism and healthy insulin sensitivity. So if I was going to give you a number, somewhere around 40 grams of protein per meal is pretty great if you're starting to hit the perimenopause or menopausal age. And that's around like 110 grams of chicken breast or 4 to 5 ounces of most protein. We also developed decreased insulin sensitivity. So what is insulin sensitivity? Insulin sensitivity is the ability of my cells to respond to insulin. So when I eat something, there's sugar in my bloodstream from the food that I eat, and insulin is secreted to tell your body, hey, move some of that sugar into a cell for energy. So insulin resistance happens when my cell gets the message from insulin to put this sugar into my cell and is like, I think we're okay, missed me with that one. So the sugar stays in the bloodstream, which is why that leads to chronically elevated blood sugar. So we have decreased insulin sensitivity, meaning our cells aren't responding as well to moving sugar from the bloodstream into our cells. So we have a higher risk of insulin resistance. We're able to handle less carbohydrates in one sitting. Again, we're talking about amount per meal. And then we also have decreased digestive efficiency. So you are probably, if you're around the age of perimenopause and menopause, like Sarah, how would I eat more at each sitting than I was in my 20s? Because my appetite is so much lower. So this is true. We are less able to digest food, which is why maybe having less meals and snacks per day. So if you're somebody who has been having potentially smaller meals, maybe sticking to 3 meals a day and allowing your body that time to break down the food after meals, as well as using supplements. HCl is a really great one as our stomach acid starts to decline, as well as digestive enzymes. So these are changes that would influence the way that your body utilizes the nutrition that you're eating. And so when we can account for these changes, a little bit more protein at meals, a little bit less carbohydrates, we can support our body in a much better way to support our metabolism, our body composition, and just overall the way that we feel.
Right, so meal balance. So ideally we want to hit what Sarah just talked about, 30 grams of quality protein per meal, 40 if you can. I tend to be quite a big protein eater myself. This is typically about 4 ounces of animal protein. This is going to stimulate that muscle protein synthesis that she spoke about. It's going to preserve that lean muscle mass. It's going to support metabolism. We also know that muscle weighs more than fat. So it does, want to make sure we have that lean muscle tissue, and it's going to supply the body with those amino acids, those essential amino acids we need. This also includes produce and whole food carbohydrates as well. We want to make sure we have those in too. I know there's been a really big move lately to, there was for quite a while, the whole keto push, taking carbs out. I'm an advocate of finding more balance. I find anytime that you super restrict yourself from not having something, my little 5-year-old comes out and wants to eat all the more of it. So I find by finding a nice balance and a nice way to have all of these wonderful food groups, you won't find yourself kind of on again, off again, that relationship we can kind of get into. So this also includes making sure you're having good carbohydrates, being mindful of your carbohydrates as well, eating your greens first, followed by protein and last starch. This is going to help with your blood sugar levels, and then prioritizing high fiber produce. So not just having greens to have greens, but really looking at the sources and the kinds that you're choosing to make sure you're giving your body that fiber that you're going to need so you can go be regular, because of course we also know being regular and pooping on a regular basis is also really essential for hormonal balance too. Then making sure you have your healthy fats, those high omega-3s, the salmon, the nuts, all those wonderful high omega-3 foods, and then also whole foods. Really trying to not have a lot of those processed foods. So when you're looking at a package, if there's a bunch of ingredients you don't understand, maybe not opting for that whole shopping, the outside circle of the grocery store, really looking at having all those good quality foods as well. And that's also going to help with inflammation too.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, again, there's also a big push for like tracking macros or macros per day. And as I kind of touched on, what's actually more beneficial is to look at the amount of food you're eating in one sitting and the way that your body responds to that. And then everybody will have a different number of times that they feel best eating per day. But it is really important to look at the actual amount you're having at meals rather than just how much you're having throughout the day. Some other nutrition tips. So these are just some things that can help to optimize your nutrition in general, as well as your ability to digest the food and break it down that you're eating. So minimizing mindless snacking. Now, snacking can be incredibly supportive. I especially find for some women who wake up around 3 to 5 a.m. due to a cortisol spike, potentially low blood sugar, having a snack such as almonds or a little bit of Greek yogurt or cottage cheese before bed can actually be helpful to help them sleep through the night. But we do want to be mindful of mindful snacking with a purpose versus mindless snacking. Many people will eat just, little bits of things throughout the day, and this can put a lot of stress onto our digestive system, as well as keep our blood sugar imbalanced. If you're always going up and down with your blood sugar, you're not going to feel your best. So minimizing snacking, trying to stick to whole meals, and then using snacks as a tool to support your health. Staying hydrated. I don't really need to go into that one. Pretty self-explanatory. The next one is very important for digestive health, which is eating in a relaxed state. And I work with lots of clients who have some chronic digestive issues. And I was really surprised when I started practicing how many women will come, I have chronic bloating. Every time I eat something, I'm so bloated, Sarah. And their bloating goes away by like 80% just by breathing. The reason being is they don't call it rest and digest mode for no reason. So when we're talking about our nervous system, we have fight or flight and rest or digest. So when we bring our body down into that rest and digest mode by taking a few deep, calm breaths, we're signaling to our body, send resources to my digestive system, because girl, we gonna eat. When we're in fight or flight mode, your body is gonna prioritize giving resources for you to be ready for a fight instead of eating. So having those breaths before you eat can be really helpful for digestion. And it also just allows you to be present and enjoy your food a lot more. Now, this next point is not for everyone. So I will say we don't need to cut things out just for the heck of cutting them out. However, research and data will tell us that many women, perimenopause and postmenopause, might feel better by lessening or eliminating these foods, and it could be for a short period of time. Now, how would you know if that's you? So if you're experiencing a lot of symptoms, maybe you have lots of mood swings or just irregular bleeding, insomnia, waking up in the night, it might be a good idea for you to try removing these foods for a couple weeks. Do I feel better? If the answer is yes, maybe you want to keep them out. If the answer is no, maybe you want to add them back in. If the answer is yes, and then you still want to try which one it was, you can add one back in a week. So maybe you add dairy the first week. Do I feel better, worse, the same? If you feel the same, then maybe you can keep that in, and then so on and so forth. So this is not for everyone, but they are quite common. And I do see a lot of people feel better from minimizing these foods. So gluten is number one. If you are sensitive to it, which many people have non-celiac sensitivity, so they might not necessarily know they're sensitive until they take it out and their digestion improves, they feel more clear. So gluten is a big one. Dairy, especially if you have experienced in the past when you were cycling heavy period flow, painful periods, or diarrhea and loose stools. High histamine foods. Now, these are typically health foods. And so I used to have a histamine intolerance. And when I found out about this, it was a game changer for me. So these are things like avocados, shrimp, fermented foods. So like kombucha, chocolate, alcohol, all the fun stuff, I know. Strawberries, cashews. And again, not everybody is sensitive to these, and you would take them out for a period of time while you build your histamine tolerance back up, and then you can add them back in. So I eat all these foods now with no problem, but when I was first experiencing a lot of inflammation, that was a big contributor to it. So these can actually activate something called mast cells, which may lead to insomnia and mood-related issues around perimenopause. And number 4 is sugar and highly processed foods. I should have put processed sugar. Fruit sugar is okay. Natural sugars are okay. I don't want anyone thinking like, oh, I can't have fruit. We're mainly talking about processed sugars and added sugars such as high fructose corn syrup.
I found personally, I will say that since I've been having Greek yogurt, I have it every night before I go to bed. I love, especially like the real, like the 10%, like the really real stuff. Plain is, it's so magical. And even if you put a little stevia in it, it is so good. I already sleep usually fairly well, but I have the best sleep. So I've always been a protein shake smoothie kind of person before bed, but I switched to Greek yogurt. So I digress. So alcohol. Alcohol is especially problematic, especially during perimenopause. I don't know if anybody here can attest to it. I know my hangovers, and Sarah and I have both talked about this, but my hangovers have gotten progressively worse over the years. So much so that I actually took about a 3.5-month break recently, just because I knew I just couldn't suffer on my Saturday mornings. And it can impact your sleep. I don't know if everybody here also can resonate with when I've had wine at night, the sugar, my blood sugar levels, I find I'm up all night long. I don't feel very good. I don't have that nice rested state. So it can affect your sleep. It reduces your melatonin and it disrupts your circadian rhythm, and also can impact hot flashes as well. And it can shrink the brain, which is something we don't want. So your occasional glass of wine, obviously you're not going to be shrinking your brain, but we really want to be mindful. That idea that you can have 1 or 2 glasses of wine every night is not healthy for us. I mean, research has shown that. It can also negatively impact gut microbiome and activate mast cells, as you were just talking about before with the histamine, and it can impact the maintenance and development of healthy muscle and bones. Not to mention, you probably won't want to work out the next day. Most people, when you're a little hungover, are not going to the gym the first morning. I know those are usually the only mornings I tend to not get my movement in, and also can impair estrogen metabolism. It can increase fibroid and also increase breast cancer risk. So although we want to, we're not saying don't drink at all. We're just saying to really kind of create some more mindful activities, especially when it comes around alcohol.
And also notice how it impacts you specifically. So sleep is a really big one that we often see. And I always say, try it out, see how you feel if you don't drink. Aeryon touched a little bit about this. I think you were going to cut it out for 30 days, right? And then you felt so good that you just kept going.
Well,
So
and I did have a drink. Sorry, but I did have a drink 2 weeks ago. I had a drink. And what's interesting is it reminded myself the next morning, because what I found is I began going, oh, I kind of like miss it. And all it did when I did have some, the next morning, I was like, this is why I don't like it as much anymore, because I've really began to tune into how I want to feel on a day-to-day basis. So I think if we can land more in that positioning, like how do I want to operate in the world, makes it a little easier. Movement. Do you want me to do this, or are you going to do this one?
you do this.
All right, movement. Of course, we want to obviously move our bodies every single day. And I just want to say that looks differently for everybody. If you're somebody who really hates going to the gym, there are wonderful activities. We're coming to this beautiful weather out now. You can jog outside, take some bands outside, go do something. But movement's really important. It's a way, I think, of honoring your body. I had to really change my relationship with movement, because a lot of the time I would exercise to punish myself for food I've eaten. And I don't have that relationship anymore, because now I look at it as an opportunity to be thankful and grateful for the fact I get this wonderful body to move in every single day. So of course, movement, as you probably know, helps with maintaining lean muscle mass. We spoke about that, which is going to help your metabolism. Bone density, which is really important, especially us as women. I know my mom is really having to be very mindful now, because her bone density has started to decrease. Supports your insulin sensitivity, reduces inflammation, and also is essential and really important for supporting weight management. As we get older, so let's go past menopause even a little bit more, and we become those old, wonderful, vibrant grandmas, we don't want to be so scared to walk that we're going to break a hip, or we're going to fall and break an ankle, that we've actually have enough, we've supported ourselves with lifting weights, that we actually can function and have a wonderful, long life being healthy and mobile, which is really important. Being mindful of cortisol regulation and don't overstressing your body. It actually looks really different for everybody. Resistance training can help build the muscle tissue. So using those weights or those bands, whatever you can, it can help improve hot flashes, cognition, and brain health. And then walking is another really important one. I think a lot of the time people get stuck in the idea of working out having to be like a HIIT workout or some intense workout. Walking is an excellent way to improve cardiovascular health, helps with blood sugar regulation, supports weight management, and it reduces stress as well. And it's something you can do anywhere. And it's something, after dinner you can do with your family, gives you time to spend with your kids now that it's nice out. So really looking at walking is something you can really do too.
Walking is awesome. So we'll touch a little bit about the nervous system, your circadian rhythm, and your HPA axis. So HPA axis is one of your stress systems. It's the hypothalamus pituitary axis. So we want adrenal axis. So we want to be really regulating the stress response in our body. And all of these things, nervous system, circadian rhythm, HPA axis, come under this huge umbrella of stress. So as we touched a little bit about before, when we start to lose progesterone and estrogen, this can do a number on our brain and our nervous system, which will force your body to recalibrate and adapt to the change. So your body is incredibly resilient, right? You don't just take away a couple pieces and it's like, well, that's the end. No more progesterone. We're done here. It will try to recalibrate to work around these changes. So having a strong, robust, healthy, and soothed nervous system is really key to reduce the symptoms that you would experience with these changes. So if our nervous system is always at a 10 and you would consider yourself maybe a high stress or an anxious person, or you've gone through periods of putting your body under a lot of stress, whether that's dieting, undersleeping, over exercising, once we start to go through this recalibration period, your body might be at a 10 or a 9, and it could tip it over the edge, and then we'll start to see some more symptoms. So if we consider stress like a bucket, and maybe some of us wake up with our stress bucket at like an 8 or 7 out of 10. And so if we start to add too much to that bucket, it will overflow. So going through the changes of losing or decreasing the amount of certain hormones that your body is producing is considered a stressor. So if our nervous system is already overstimulated, we can start to see more of these symptoms be exacerbated. So on the flip side of that, a well-functioning hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is key to hormone balance, as it really influences a hormone called DHEA. And now if we think about hormone balance again, we want to have a good balance of cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and DHEA. So if we have too much cortisol and not enough DHEA, that is considered a catabolic state. So breaking your body down, right? So we're going to quite literally start to deteriorate. So we want to have this balance, and we need to have a really healthy, soothed nervous system and keep our stress low for our body to be able to produce enough DHEA. So doing practices such as meditation, breath work, getting outside in nature, making sure that you're supporting your sleep, getting enough sleep, eating adequate food, reducing inflammation, all of these things are going to be so impactful for helping to keep our nervous system really soothed and calm, and overall support our transition through perimenopause. When we have dysregulations to our nervous system or our HPA axis, that can also lead to changes with insulin, and you will commonly hear it referred to as the stress belly, where women and men both can start to get abdominal fat gain. So they might be relatively lean everywhere else in their body, but you'll see someone with a distended stomach or maybe holding on to more weight in their abdomen. So this typically can be cortisol related. And the reason being is this is an adaptive mechanism that our body has created to keep you safe. So if you're stressed out, your body's like, protect vital organs, which are typically in this area. So you will start to store more fat in that area, which is your body trying to keep you safe. So if you keep your body feeling safe, then we are overall just more balanced and we have less of these symptoms. We feel more soothed, we sleep better, our energy is better, we think more clearly, we're able to better keep our weight. And so it's really important to implement strategies for supporting your nervous system and your circadian rhythms, which is your sleep-wake cycles, through some of the stuff that we will discuss.
So stress and the thoughts you think. I really love talking a little bit about cognitive behavioral therapy. And so I used it quite a bit when working through my eating disorder and establishing a better relationship with myself. And it is a big part of even perimenopause and looking at how we're going to deal with perimenopause. And this is one of the 5 pillars, the thoughts you think. So I love talking about this one because I don't think a lot of people realize how powerful our brains are and how they actually can really affect our body physically. So every thought you think releases brain chemicals. So when we focus on negative thoughts, it zaps our brain's forcefulness. So just think about that. Our brain slows down and actually can dim our brain's ability to function, and even can create depression. I think we can all attest to going down that rabbit hole. We have those thoughts and we keep going down and down and down. However, by switching those thoughts and thinking more positive, happy, hopeful, optimistic thoughts, it decreases cortisol, the stress hormone that Sarah was talking about, and it produces serotonin, which is that feel-good, happy hormone, and creates a sense of well-being. So simply just by that. And one thing I always have told people and clients when I used to work with them back in the day was, in the morning time, I find the best thing to do first thing in the morning, lying in bed, is the things you're grateful for. Think about your day ahead in a positive light. What impact are you going to have on the world? Who do you want to be? How, and giving gratitude has been really something I do every single morning before I touch my phone, lay in bed and just really kind of create my day. So really standing in gratitude, thinking of those positive, hopeful thoughts. Next slide. And there we go. And I love this saying, change your language, change your thoughts. So it's not only the thoughts we're thinking, but it's how we're speaking too. So really catching yourself if you say negative things about yourself, even I'm so tired all the time, right? Well, then how are you going to feel? You're going to feel tired, right? So you really have to be cognizant of our language too. So with cognitive behavioral therapy, it's thoughts create feelings and create actions or non-actions. That's really what it kind of comes down to in cognitive behavioral therapy. And what's interesting is when I kind of began doing some digging, they've actually been using cognitive behavioral therapy for menopause as an effective treatment for hot flashes and also night sweats, which is really interesting. And they found that women who viewed menopause in negative terms have more frequent and more severe symptoms. And I really do believe, because then we're focusing on the negative, and when we're focusing on the negative appears even more. So some ideas you can look at is, if you're sitting there going, gosh, I'm so tired all the time, change that into, I'm vibrant, I'm energetic, I'm ready to find joy. Looking for new positive ways in which you can switch those conversations in your head, and also what you're verbally saying as well. My body is healthy, my mind is healthy, and I radiate, it's supposed to be, I radiate positive energy and vitality. and times may be difficult. It's not always going to be sunshines and butterflies, but it's a short phase. And if you're not feeling that good in that moment in time, things always do get better. Things always work through. So really creating mindfulness. We talked about that a little bit with food, being mindful about food, taking our time to eat, but also really creating mindfulness around the thoughts that we're thinking. Learning to focus on the positive, having a gratitude journal, laying in bed in the morning. When you have those negative thoughts show up, instantly have something you can counteract that with to change that. Another thing too you can do as well is working towards a goal. Looking at, obviously if you're working towards having a happy and healthy and navigating perimenopause, that's a really great goal. So no matter what you're feeling during that day, if you might be feeling a little bit crappy, hey, I'm working towards something positive. I'm changing my food. I'm changing the way I think. I'm adding all these tips and strategies that Sarah and Aeryon spoke about today. So those are some things you can do in the sense of cognitive behavioral therapy as well.
So these are just a couple supports for your circadian rhythm and HPA axis that we discussed. So a big support for circadian rhythms is getting morning light. So if you know me personally, or you've ever worked with me or been on my Instagram page, I always preach about how important it is to get outside in the morning sunlight, even if it's raining, for 10 or 15 minutes, which signals your body to start the wake cycle. So it can help to time our cortisol spike, which helps with energy. And when our cortisol spikes at an appropriate time in the morning, it will also fall in the evening at a good time, given your circadian rhythm is healthy, which signals your body to make melatonin, which can help with sleep. So we want sunlight in the morning, and we want to avoid blue light, so computers and screens in the evening. Another support is having protein, so eating breakfast by around 10 a.m., which sends beneficial signals to your clock genes, which regulate insulin and metabolism and set your body up for success in dealing with food and eating food and supporting insulin regulation throughout the day. Getting outside in nature, as I briefly touched on, which can improve parasympathetic tone, so that rest and digest mode. Building social connections, so the friends you keep around you, having a really good support system, having people to talk to, whether that's a health support team of working with practitioners or a therapist, or even the people around you, your family and friends. And then the kind of classic ones are breath work, yoga, and meditation, which can be very, very helpful and therapeutic as well. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the risk factors. We won't go into big depth with these, but it is important to know some of the things that could potentially happen and some ways to support ourselves to reduce our risks. So osteoporosis, as we touched on a little bit. So bone, a lot of people think of bone as just like this dead mass of cells in our body that's super hard, but it actually is a beautiful and dynamic living tissue. So there's a hormone called osteocalcin, which helps regulate the HPA axis. So again, tied to our stress response is our bone health. And this also helps to support all the supports we do for our general health. So, sleep, proper nutrition, moving your body also support bone health. Limiting alcohol and smoking are two huge ones for bone health. And again, as estrogen has an impact on our bone health and density, once we go through perimenopause and menopause, as our estrogen starts to decline, we are at a greater risk for bone-related issues. And a really great thing that you can do, regardless of where you are right now listening to this, is try to build lean muscle. The more lean muscle mass we have, the better our bone health is. And that resistance training that puts that little bit of pressure onto our bones really helps to support the density. So putting on lean muscle mass, resistance training are huge. And supplement wise, there's actually very little evidence to support supplemental calcium. Yes, we do need calcium, but the best place to get it is through dietary calcium. And then estrogen and progesterone hormone replacement therapy can support your bone health, as well as vitamin D3 and K2. So these are just some ways that you can support your bone health at any time, but especially perimenopause and beyond. Insulin resistance, so we've kind of been talking a little bit about this. I described a little bit about what that actually is. And so all of the general nutrition supports we touched on, such as eating enough protein and being mindful of your carbs per sitting, will all help with this insulin regulation. No naked carbs is what I like to call this guideline, which just means if you're eating a carb, let's say a piece of fruit or rice cake or crackers, you always want to give it some clothes. So pair it with something. So either a protein or a fat or both. So for example, rather than having an apple, you could have apple with cheese or apple with almond butter. If you're having some grapes, maybe it could be grapes with cottage cheese or grapes with some cashews. So again, we just want to pair our carb with something else. The next one is wearing a continuous glucose monitor to test your glucose regulation. So this is something I like to wear one quite often, as I do have a family history of diabetes. It sticks on the back of your arm and you can read your blood sugar throughout the day. So you can test how certain foods and certain amounts per meal are influencing your blood sugar. And ideally we want to keep this stable. So it's really good. They just last for 2 weeks. You can kind of see the foods that you're eating, how your body responds, and then potentially seek out further support either through supplementation or seeing your GP if your blood sugar is dysregulated, and you do this experiment with yourself, which is actually very fun. I've been loving it so far. Again, building muscle.
Sorry, I was just going to say we've been doing it with my dad this past week, and it's been really interesting because he has type 2 diabetes. So just a little side note there, but it's been really fascinating watching what foods affect him differently. So I'm actually excited because I want to do it now too. So I'm like on the glucose monitor bandwagon.
My boyfriend too, he was like, I want one of those. And I got my mom on it, who's a type 2 diabetic. And my mom and I were able to drop her fasting blood glucose by 5 points, which is huge. The actual range for healthy glucose is below 5. And so 5 points is a big deal within less than 2 weeks by using like some of the strategies we talked about paired with just seeing how her body responds. So huge advocate. You can buy them at London Drugs. You don't need a prescription. If you want, we can send you the link so you can either reach out to either of us. Intermittent fasting. So we're not going to go into depth on fasting, but if we said before protein by 10 a.m., if you think about that, fasting can be somewhere between like 12, 14, 16 hours, depending on your body and how you feel. So if you eat at, let's say 9:30, you would stop eating at 9:30 or earlier the night before. Ideally, you can stop eating at like 7 or 8 p.m. Again, depending on your body and your schedule. These aren't rules like don't eat after 8. It's really just to give your body enough time to support insulin regulation. So just trying not to eat too close to bed or seeing how your body responds to different times of fasting. Dementia. This is a really, really great book. I love this book. And we are at a higher risk as females for things like dementia, as menopause causes a drop in brain energy that supports, again, the recalibration of the energy system in your brain. So things are changing. And if this calibration is done properly, we're set up for good brain health. But if there's issues with that calibration process, as we go through the changes, we can be at a higher risk for dementia. So again, supporting lean muscle mass, supporting insulin regulation, reducing alcohol and smoking, and eating whole foods all support your brain health. So it's not funny, but I always kind of laugh because it's like, I sometimes feel like a broken record when I'm like, and if you have this problem, do these things. And if you have this problem, do the same things, because they're really foundational supports and they can help us in everything. So I know I sound a little bit like a broken record, but it's just to emphasize how integral they really are. Food-wise, omega-3 fatty acids. So you can either supplement with these as arguably the best way, unless you're eating something like a wild-caught salmon pretty much every day. Supplementing with omega-3s can be helpful. And then MCTs, which are a type of fat that comes from coconut, are also really helpful for brain health.
Right. So supplementation, this is the final one. So one of the reasons we have supplement is the fifth pillar of Aeryon Wellness is because we both believe this. It's always so important to get all these other key things we've spoken about tonight: nutrition, alcohol, everything she just touched on. And then now we can start looking at how we supplement, how we support ourselves, because supplementation is designed to support you. So this is Aeryon Wellness. If you're not familiar, this is some of the products that we have. We just launched 3 more products. I'm going to be touching base on a couple of the products we believe that fit really nicely into supporting you through perimenopause. And one of the things we have on we do with Aeryon Wellness, it's really unique because we have these QR codes in the front of every label. So any product you see of mine, when you scan that QR code, it's going to take you to a 30 to 60 second video. We also have meal plans, vegan and non. We have information on hormonal balance and how to sync your diet and lifestyle. Everything in here, every single product has its own individualized little kind of planner to a certain degree, and education. So next time you see one of the products, make sure you grab it. Oh, you have I was going to do the pointer thing. I was looking for it. So I'll let you do the next one. So the first product we're going to talk about tonight is Reclaim. I probably shouldn't have a favorite child, to be quite honest with you, but this is my favorite child. Reclaim has made such a profound difference for my life. And also just because I've been going through perimenopause, I find if I don't take it, I notice it. My cycles are not as regular. Also mood support too with the St. John's wort. I really noticed that too. So this product was really designed for a day-to-day hormonal support product. And if you compare it to any product on the market, it is the most comprehensive hormonal support product on the market. I hands down fully believe that 100%. So it can help with symptoms such as estrogen imbalance and progesterone imbalance. It also helps support the liver. It also helps with immune support as well. And we're just going to go through the ingredients a little bit. So I'll be really fast on this one. So some of the ingredients we have, so we have calcium diglucarate that helps with stage 2 liver detoxification. We also have green tea extract in there, so that helps with blood sugar regulation. We spoke a little bit about that with insulin. Also helps support weight management. We have broccoli sulforaphane in there, so that's an antioxidant, and that's antimicrobial, anti-aging. And what we know is by having these cruciferous vegetables, estrogen can actually be detoxified with cruciferous vegetables. So we really want to make sure we're having, when we talked about our vegetables earlier, our fibrous vegetables, making sure that we have those fibrous vegetables. But that's what broccoli sulforaphane does, helps support flushing out that extra excess estrogen metabolite, sorry. Then we have DIM that helps balance good estrogen to bad estrogen. It also helps prevent breast, uterine, and colorectal cancer. And next. And then we have B6 as well that helps support estrogen as well, and progesterone. Then we have more of a mood boosting. So then we have the St. John's wort in there. So this you actually really feel in about 15 minutes. We have white yam. White yam also helps with DHEA and testosterone production. It helps with vaginal dryness and low libido. We have astragalus and zinc as well to help with immune support. So really looking at the whole picture. It's a one a day. And I take my lunch every day, and I notice a dramatic difference. So that's one of the reclaimed products. That's one of the products we have that we're talking about. Next one is Restore. We talked a little bit about adrenals. We talked a little bit about stress and cortisol. Also, one of the other ways your body produces estrogen is through your adrenals when you go into menopause. So it's really important that we support our adrenals in our younger years. And this is something that we emphasize really with a lot of younger women, to support your stress. And as women, we tend to do a million different things. And so this will really dictate how we manage our stress, how bad our menopause is going to be later in life. So it's really important that we manage our stress effectively. So Restore is really designed to support adrenal health. It boosts cognition, energy, and also focus as well. Unless you went over, there we go. So we have Chinese hawthorn in here. So Chinese hawthorn, there's a study in 2018 on stress-induced depression. So it helps with stress management. We have ashwagandha. We used KSM 66 ashwagandha. So that uses the root. That's where all the bioavailable withanols are, and that's what you want, the 5%. So that's really going to help with libido. It's going to help your body manage stress. Then we have bacopa, which is a unique ingredient that helps with mental clarity and focus, so you don't have that 3 o'clock crash. We have astragalus, again, to support immune health as well. Then we have Shashandra. It turns down the overproduction of cortisol, so really help alleviating that cortisol levels. And then B5 to help with energy production. So this is something else that you can take. If you find you're dealing with a lot of stress, it's really great to take a product like Restore, and you can also stack that with Reclaim as well if you like. And then last but not least, if you're somebody who struggles with sleep, we have Snooze. And the reason we chose Snooze is because we have Sleeping Beauty as well. Snooze does not have any melatonin in it. And also too, it also really focuses more on adrenal support. So it's not just a sleep support product, but we're literally looking at how we can deal with supporting our body and the cortisol it produces. So this is adrenal support product. It reduces stress, promotes relaxation. I believe Sarah said she really liked it. She had some really great night's sleep since she tried it. So with Snooze, we also included the Chinese hawthorn again. So that obviously with that stress-induced depression, that claim we have there that we used in Restore, it also helps with boost mood too. We don't, as I said, no melatonin in this. If you're looking for a melatonin-free product, this is your jam. We have valerian in there, and that helps inhibit the breakdown of GABA. We have L-theanine to put you in that nice rested state. Passion flower, we've had wonderful feedback from women using this who have struggled with hot flashes, who find their hot flashes have been alleviated from this. It also puts you into that nice relaxed state. We do have GABA as well. So that's going to really put you into that healthy hormone production. Also, it's going to put that sedative effect. So you get that nice rested state. So you're able to sleep through the night. And then magnesium glycinate too. So it's a one a day. You can take 2 if needed, but you take this one before you go to bed.
I have no problem sleeping usually. I started taking this because I ran out of the magnesium I had, and I usually try not to take sleep supports because I'm already a pretty deep sleeper. and I was watching something and I fell asleep. Like every night I take it, it literally knocks me out. So if you are somebody who has sleep issues, highly, highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, it's a great product. So any questions? Anybody? Put the chat open, I guess. Anybody has any questions?
So we're going to open the Q&A. If anyone has any questions on anything that we discussed, or am I sharing my screen still?
No, not anymore.
If anyone has questions on anything we discussed, or even specific questions.
Okay, I'm glad you're learning and writing notes. Thank you. Yay, hi, Erin.
I'm going to pop up the last slides to show if you want to connect with us. If you have any further questions, like maybe something comes to you after you marinate on this information, you can reach out to us. So my Instagram is Sarah Collins Wellness. Erin's is
Aeryon Wellness, www.aeryonwellness.com. I was just gonna say, there is a question. Bryn's asking, what kind of foods increase progesterone?
Food-wise, anytime you're eating enough food, you are benefiting your progesterone production and you can increase it. There are some people who believe that eating yams produce progesterone. The research is very mixed. A big thing you can do for progesterone production is eating enough carbohydrates. So in your premenstrual years, so if you are someone who hasn't started perimenopause transition, the data tells us around 150 grams. I'm always so reluctant to throw out numbers, but it's a good way to kind of reference where you are. So eating enough, specifically carbs and fats and protein, is really important. It's one of the best things we can do for progesterone production. If you are somebody who has low progesterone and that has been something you've been dealing with, I know we talked about having 3 full meals plus limiting snacking, but I would suggest eating every 3 to 4 hours and a little bit smaller to support progesterone production, because you're signaling to your body that it has the safety and the consistent nourishment. I mean, if they are dairy free, what do we suggest to get? Oh, let me go through. I've been very nervous about this next stage while watching this. Aw, so glad to hear that. It is normal to feel anxious about something we've never been through, right? We only have other people's stories and experiences. And so when we're navigating something that's new, it's important to recognize that your experience could be completely different and unique. And when we have the tools to support our body, it doesn't have to be symptomatic. So if you're somebody who has had, pretty good cycles and maybe not as symptomatic, you likely will have a good experience. If you're someone who had maybe not the greatest cycles, that is a good sign to start to maybe pursuing, okay, if I've been having X, Y, and Z symptoms, what does that mean? I have painful periods and I get a lot of bloating around my cycle. I might have high estrogen. So now is a good time to start supporting that. So because you have the knowledge and you're catching it so early, you're going to have a beautiful transition. I have no doubt.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, is really looking at where you are right now. And also, I mean, I've been more aware of it too. And even just thinking about all of a sudden going into menopause, what that's also emotionally going to feel like, right? Because there's this changing that's happening. And so really embracing that as a positive thing as well. We spoke a little bit about that, like this is a welcoming, and that you're welcoming this into your body, and you're welcoming your body to go through the change. You're supporting your body by making sure you're eating those good foods, having those high omega-3s, making sure you're moving your body every day, weight bearing exercise. And I think if you can line yourself up with those, as Sarah's saying, I think it'll just be, you just transition right into the next wonderful, beautiful phase of being a woman, really.
Mm-hmm. Dietary sources of calcium, nuts are really great. Almonds are good. You can get some calcium in dark leafy greens, would be kind of the non-dairy ones. I'm a huge fan for all minerals of having like high quality grass-fed beef. If you can stomach it, beef liver too. Everyone who knows me on this is like, there she goes again, talking about her beef liver.
So good.
Like, coming into, after learning from blood tests that I know what I can do now. So it would really depend on what your symptoms are. I do also agree that a lot of symptoms or issues that have been going on for females have been masked by some sort of birth control, whether it's IUD or birth, like hormonal pills. So it's never too late to start supporting your body. And it really would depend on why your body is having the inflammation, mood-related issues, and stress. I'm going to say, just based like very generally off that info, you might have low progesterone if you haven't been ovulating. I see quite commonly that many females who have like a hormonal IUD, so the Mirena or Kyleena or whatever, although it's not supposed to stop your period, it often does and stop ovulation, which means you likely have lower progesterone and you might have higher estrogen if your body is inflamed and you're having mood related issues. So if you're looking to figure out exactly what's going on, I would suggest getting a hormone panel such as a Dutch test. But for general supports, again, both of those supplements are going to be really, really great because they do have estrogen balancing complex in them, as well as some Vitex, which is so great for supporting low progesterone. And then all the things we talked about, stress, food.
And I was going to say too, and Sarah does do Dutch testing. I believe you do Dutch. So if you did ever want to find or get tested, Sarah would definitely be the girl who you want to contact. So a little plug for Sarah there, but make sure, yeah, if you're looking at testing, Sarah's phenomenal. So
both are low. Yes, both it's quite common to see both low in periods of high stress, or just overall hormone output is really low. We'll see low cortisol, low estrogen, and low progesterone, and they sometimes all come together in a nice little beautiful package with a bow on it. So to support overall hormone balance, I always have clients come back to the idea, or in practice, how can I take as much stress off the body as possible? So we really need to audit our lives, audit the SHIT out of our lives. What am I doing that's causing my body stress? For me, I had low hormone levels a few years ago. I was like, oh, this intermittent fasting thing that was really popular actually probably isn't good for my body, because I was also undersleeping and teaching a bunch of fitness classes. So I really had to change careers, get enough sleep, stop under eating, and fuel my body. And now I have, like, my hormone levels when I ran a Dutch test on myself are all pretty great. So coming back to this idea, where do you feel like your biggest stressors are coming from? Are you eating enough? Are you eating quality foods? Are you maybe having a lot of mental or psycho-emotional stress and need to go down that avenue? And this idea of healing can sometimes become really overwhelming, right? We're like, oh, stress, I've got lots of that. I'm everywhere. So we just come back to like, okay, well, where do you feel like what I call your primary healing opportunity is? What is the biggest place you feel like you could improve? Start there, and then you'll notice things probably get quite a bit better, and then go, okay, now that we've got that pretty well under the belt, what is my next healing opportunity? And just go in different phases. It doesn't need to be this big overwhelming thing where you have like, okay, now I got to eat and now I got to change my schedule. Like, just focus on one thing at a time, and this is all going to benefit.
Yeah, 100%.
Take it easy, my friends.
Oh, geez, teaching kindergarten during COVID time, that would be stressful. Teaching kindergarten without COVID happening would be super stressful. So yes, for sure.
Something for if you have a stressful job, like when you're at your job is really stressful. I love to do this when I had a stressful job that I would go to, as well as with my clients, is when you get home in the car or before you leave, sit in your car and do some sort of like listen to your favorite song or do a meditation. And this is called a transition activity. Or when you get home, take a shower is another good one. And you're doing something that signals your body, we're now done with work and we're going into like mom, wife, just chilling by myself mode. And so it's kind of letting that stress go by an activity that switches your brain. Now we're letting go of work stress, because when you have job stress, it can sometimes come home with you. And then now you've turned your job stress into your stress. So transition activities can be very helpful too.
And breathing's been really important for me lately. I've had a lot of stresses. My dad, and I have CHFA happening and new product launches, but the whole like breathing really deep into my nose and just I've had to do that a couple of times, and just really connecting to my breath has made a really big difference as well for my stress.
Mm-hmm.
I think
yoga. Go get your yoga, girl. I love that. There's some stress reduction.
There you go. Yes.
Awesome. So if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to chat about it. I love talking in general. I love talking about this stuff.
And stay tuned. We're going to be having these. We're going to have one next month too, I believe, but we're really going to start trying to have these on a more consecutive basis and really looking at all different health and wellness issues for women and just how we can support women. And yeah, as Sarah said, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We're both here to help and support and empower you to live your best life. Oh, Sarah, there's a question. Does the Dutch test give cortisol and DHEA info?
Yes, it does. The Dutch test shows all of your sex hormones. It will show your cortisol pattern throughout the day. So morning, mid-morning, afternoon, and evening. So you'll be able to see if you have low cortisol in the morning and it peaks your pattern throughout the day. It shows DHEA, it shows estrogen metabolites, so E1, E2, E3, and then how your body is actually metabolizing them. It shows methylation, progesterone, the whole shebang. It's a great test.
That's awesome. All right, wonderful.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for coming and tuning in.
Thank you. And we're going to put this on the YouTube channel. So if you want to watch again, we will have it. We'll have it again for you guys to watch over and over. Tell your friends.
Bye.
Everybody. See you later. Bye.